You're crazy if you don't have this haplochromis in your African cichlid tank.
You can't say that.
Okay, sorry, not crazy, but there's something wrong with you. He's one of the most beautiful African cichlids there is. He's not too much of a butthead, and I don't know why he's been kept such a secret. I'm gonna tell you everything you need to know about him, and by the end of this video, you're gonna want one in your own tank. I guarantee it. Here we go. Meet easily one of the most beautiful fish in my tank, and my guess would be he'd be in the top 5 of your own tank. If you have a peacock and hap tank, you might think they all come from Lake Malawi. Well, the Thickskin is still from Africa, but a different lake. Lake Victoria, the lake with the largest surface area in Africa. And according to fishsite.com and other sites, the decision to add Nile perch to the lake in the 1950s and 60s just added to the human reasons for the population drop of haps in the lake. And some believe as much as 50% of the diversity of haplochromines have been lost in the last 200 years. So the aquarium hobby is actually helping to keep these haps from going extinct. If you want to learn more about this tragedy, then just head over to ecologycenter.us. But for now, on to happier things. You'll find this beauty something to behold with those dark gray and gold stripes, the red dorsal and tail fins, along with those stripes and war paint on his face. I call the stripe just below the eye his war paint. You'll also notice a bit of blue at the beginning of the dorsal fin, which blows my mind. I've seen people confuse the Thickskin with the zebra Obliquidens before, and that's certainly an easy mistake to make. They both have gold and black or nearly black stripes, and there are a few obvious differences though. The most obvious being the red spot on the zebra's chest. But back to Eduardo. He just might be the prettiest fish in Alcatraz. Oh, wait a minute, do I say that about a lot of fish in Alcatraz? Maybe I do. The male Thickskin tops out around 4 to 5 inches, and the female only gets about 3 inches. So if you're keeping an all-male African cichlid tank, and you have predator haps in there, once this guy gets mature, he's going to be too big to be eaten by any of them, and he's so small that he hardly takes up any room in your tank. That's 2 good things to celebrate about this guy. Most haps range between 6 inches to 12 inches, some even reaching beyond the 12-inch range, like my Ferk II, who can get up to 16 inches, and my new Hochliceps, who's small now but could very well get up to 14 inches. Pretty big. And there are some peacocks you can find on the smaller side, around 5 inches, but typically not haps. They're the big guys, and so because of this size, this fella is really unusual, a stranger in a strange land. But he's not entirely alone, and that's one of the cool things about Victorian haps. Many of them are on the smaller side. Zeke, my zebra Obliquidens, is a big Victorian, and he's only about 6 inches. I typically recommend a tank size of about 125 gallons or more, at least 6 feet of continuous swimming. Because peacocks and haps are such active swimmers, they really appreciate the extra room. Not only does the extra size help with the open swimming room, but it also provides these African cichlids with more ways to escape the clutches of other nasty fish. Remember, African cichlids can be super aggressive, and it's important for your fish to be able to flee when necessary.
Well, I'm out of here.
I still recommend a larger tank size for the Thickskin, but most people would say that there's no problem adding him to a 75-gallon tank. Never go smaller than a 75 though, and I would recommend you never add any non-Victorian haps to a tank that small. Victorian haps have a wide range of aggressiveness, all the way down from Gandhi-esque behavior, all the way up to don't look him in the eye or he'll kill you. I'd say the Thickskin Obliquidens fall somewhere in the middle of that. Eduardo's more towards the lower end, so maybe like Gandhi, but with an edge. Even though they're small, they typically aren't a target of aggression from other fish in the tank, unless it's from other Victorians. At least that's my experience. Zeke is one of those zebra Obliquidens I was talking about. He's never aggressive unless provoked, and Eduardo isn't very aggressive at all except to this guy. You're looking at Monty, another Victorian, the Pundamilia naerii. Life's been interesting for Monty. See, my first Thickskin, Raphael, was peaceful, but he would chase poor Monty around quite frequently. Never really hurting him, but as you can imagine, well, how would you like it if you lived in a nice house with several other people and everyone got along with you well? Except for one dude. Everywhere you went, there he was, eyeballing you and flexing his pecs in your face all the time like Terry Crews and pointing his finger in your chest. It might take the sweet out of Home Sweet Home. Well, that Thickskin died of mysterious causes, which gave Monty a reprieve. But Eduardo, his replacement, has the same fascination with poor old Monty. Eduardo doesn't mean to be a jerk, but sometimes he just can't help it, man. You know what I mean? And don't you think this is all pretty good information for you? Which is why
you will subscribe. Ding ding.
The water conditions in Lake Victoria are pretty close to the water conditions in Lake Malawi, so if you have a tank full of Lake Malawi cichlids, then your water conditions should be fine if you want to add a Thickskin Obliquidens to the mix. Just like with Lake Malawi cichlids, they like their water a little on the alkaline side, with a pH between 7.4 and 8.4, and a GH around 2 to 8. So the water is hard, but not quite as hard as with Lake Malawi. But that won't be a problem for your Victorians. I just use aragonite sand in Alcatraz, which serves a dual purpose. Keeps the pH around 7.8 in my tank, and it also gives them some nice sand to sift through. Oh yeah, these guys are sand sifters, just like most other African cichlids. Temperature should be around 74 to 84, but I found that keeping it about 78 to 79 helps prevent them from showing more of their a-hole personalities. You'll want lots of filtration, as with any other African cichlids, since they're filthy pigs, to help keep their water quality nice and clean. If you want to decorate your tank that has the Thickskin Obliquidens in it, you certainly can, and they'd appreciate the gesture because they like hiding places. But if you have other peacocks and haps in the tank from Lake Malawi, well, those weirdos will stake claim on certain items in the tank, like a rock or a stick, and that'll become their prized possession, and they'll defend it to the death. This can be problematic. They do well with peacocks and haps, and I don't have Mbuna, but apparently you can keep these fish with Mbuna, and they do quite well with all the rocks and caves. They're about the same size as Mbuna, so that helps. Now, I've only read that this can be done, so if you go about this route, make sure you research it on your own. Don't blame me if it all bursts into a flaming fireball of pain and torment. You should also be fine adding these fish to whatever decor you have in your existing African cichlid tank. My decor has never been a problem. Eduardo doesn't do a lot of hiding, and he doesn't defend any landmarks either. His predecessor, Raphael, was the same way. And as I mentioned, you'll need sand small enough for the Thickskin to sift through. They're fairly active sand sifters, which means your tank may be arranged the way you want it one day, and arranged the way he wants it tomorrow. Since we've touched a little on tank mates, might as well cover it all right now. You can essentially keep your Thickskin Obliquidens with any other haps and peacocks you like, except for another male Thickskin or possibly some other Victorians. Like I said, you just have to keep an eye on your Victorians to make sure they're not bullying anyone and they're not getting bullied. You'll only want to keep the Thickskin with peacocks and haps or Mbuna. Don't add this little dude to your community tank unless you want a bunch of dead community fish and one Thickskin Obliquidens. And by the way, how about you? Have you kept haps, Victorian or otherwise, with Mbuna? Let everyone know your experience. And by the way, make sure you hit that like button. God will know if you don't, and that could be very bad. Now on to breeding the Thickskin Obliquidens. And I don't usually breed my fish. Let me tell you the truth about breeding Thickskin Obliquidens. You'll want 1 to 3 males to 5 to 10 females. This helps reduce male aggression and give the females some reprieve from the male chasing. Oh, and keep them in a tank all by themselves so you don't get any sleeping around, resulting in various mutts. It's a good idea to have some hiding places for your subdominant males and females too. Don't want any 911 calls for domestic abuse in your Thickskin breeding tank. Hey man, she hit me first. What was I supposed to do? She had it coming. All African cichlids have questionable character at best. They're mouth brooders, which typically have 20 to 30 fry, which are raised by Mama Thickskin until they're ready to swim free, if no one else eats them first. And what do I feed Eduardo? Well, good food, that's what. And I'll show you what to feed your Thickskin Obliquidens. Garbage in, garbage out. Feed your boy cheap food and poor ingredients and you'll wind up with a drab-looking unhealthy fish. If you're spending all that time and money on these fairly expensive cichlid fish and aquarium setups, you'd almost be as insane as African cichlids are to feed them cheap food. Make sure you check out the first ingredients in your food also. They should be high-quality fish ingredients, not fillers like wheat. In case you don't know, the ingredients are listed in order based on highest percentage makeup in the food. So the first 3 will be in much more abundance than the last 3. So you want things like squid meal, fish meal, things like that in the first top 3. It's good to mix it up and give them a variety of fish food also. Since I only feed my boys good high-quality foods, I feed a variety of Northfin pellets. I've used them ever since I've had an African cichlid tank, as well as some of Ron's cichlid pellets, a little TDO Chroma Boost, and I also hand feed some of my really big guys monster pellets by Extreme. They'll get some treats once a week also, like frozen krill or brine shrimp, plus some blanched zucchini. They love the krill, and the zucchini helps keep things moving in the old digestive tract, if you know what I mean. If you feed your fish too much protein without veggies, it's thought by many that they can wind up with the dreaded Malawi bloat. They'll balloon up because they're backed up, which can result in death. Can you imagine dying from constipation? So be cautious with the feeding of your fish. Don't overfeed. You can also feed your Thickskin freeze-dried foods and flake pellets, but I rarely do. Live foods are not recommended because they can carry disease, which will spread it onto your Thickskin Obliquidens. I used to feed once a day, but now I feed twice a day in smaller amounts. This helps them to hide their crazy. So what did I tell you? You want a Thickskin Obliquidens now, don't you? And you're probably wondering, how did I ever get by without one all these years? Well, let me tell you a little secret. Once you get one, he's gonna go along great with your zebra Obliquidens that's already in your tank. What? You don't have one of those in your tank either? Come on, man, you're killing me here. You've been watching the Cichlid Charmer, and as always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.